Hello everyone. How are you guys doing? Hopefully you've been having a decent Saturday. Um I'll leave you guys with the initial puzzle, the warm-up puzzle as always, while I make sure everything is working in a technical level. Um I'll leave you guys with the everything is working in a technical level. Okay. Let's just make sure that both of these are active. Let's see. That's bad news. Let's try again. That's bad news as well. That's third time's the charm, as they say. It wasn't a charm. Let's try a fourth time as a charm. Fourth. Okay, let's just test again. Okay, it's not working. Well, it's gonna take a while. But I'm quite sure it's gonna start working at some point. What about this one? There we go. Okay, well, the Twitch chat is working. The YouTube one is gonna take a while, as it usually does for some reason. But okay, we'll get going. So yeah, hopefully everyone's been having a decent Saturday. We're gonna get going with the chess. As always, Temple Zero chess. We're gonna be playing in the arena that just started 5 minutes ago. So we're running a little late, but we're gonna get decent games regardless. Now, when it comes to the warm-up puzzle, hopefully you guys had enough time to think about this. It's very important for you to think about this, to not just lazily let me solve it for you. The point of these videos, the point of this whole channel is actually teaching chess. You guys should treat this as an opportunity to improve your calculations. So, candidate moves. We just landed in this position. We had no idea what is going on. Well, what is going on is that when we take a look at the material, that's a dead giveaway, very obvious giveaway, that we have to do something very quickly and very accurately. Why? Because we are down not one, not two, but 3 minor pieces. That's what I wanted to say. And we have to be very, very precise, because if not, we're just going to be down 3 minor pieces. We're going to lose the game. So, candidate moves, very forcing moves: Queen h7, Queen h8, and Queen e8. Queen e8, you quickly realize that black has 1,000 ways of blocking, and it's difficult to think of a follow-up after all of those blocking moves. Queen h7 doesn't make as much sense as Queen h8. Why? Because Queen h7 allows black to escape to 2 squares, and on the other hand, Queen h8 is more forcing because it forces black only to 1 move. There's an only move. When you're calculating, only moves are your friend. Remember that. Hello, Roger. There we go. Sorry that your message couldn't. Now it's working. The YouTube chat takes a while to work sometimes. Hopefully you've been having a nice beginning of a weekend. Now, Queen h8, King f7. Only moves are your best friend. That's the conclusion of the last thing I wanted to say. Now, there's another very forcing move in this position, and that is, I mean, we have checks with the queen, right? But we have g6, right? And that, once again, kind of forces black. I say kind of, but it forces black to only take on g6. And, well, because I've been moving the pieces, now it becomes obvious that in this position we have actually checkmate in 1 move. That is Queen h5. So part of the difficulty in this one is, obviously this is a very beginnerish puzzle. Nothing compared to what we've been solving in our videos with Road to 3000 puzzle rating. But for those of you who are beginners and do want to improve at puzzles, part of the difficulty here is to see a backward move, I think. You can see up to this point, and it's difficult to see that Queen h5 going back is checkmate. Okay, well, we're gonna get going. Daily Rapid Arena. And once again, make sure nothing is broken. We're 29th place, wow. By doing absolutely nothing. Our rating is 2342. Let's try to get our rating back to 2400. Although it's not the priority. As long as we get good games. Maybe we can berserk a little bit. 2 streams ago we were berserking fully. And yeah. There was something else I wanted to say, but okay. I completely forgot. But yeah, I haven't been streaming on Wednesdays, and I may be dropping them and doing only Saturdays and Sundays, but we will see. Best of luck. We're gonna play 1 e4. e4 is a first move. They play c5, we're gonna play knight f3. And before we play d4, which would be the main line against most Sicilians, except the Okeli, by the way, a6 actually prevents d4, which is insane. You have to do something else. But either way, we're gonna play c3. This is the delayed Alapin. David, which one is the normal Alapin? Well, c3 here. But we're gonna play the delayed Alapin. Here black should play d5, but they play knight f6. They may be trying to get us to those lines where black plays knight d5. And I think I don't mind that. I'm gonna actually accept the challenge. Black goes knight d5. I'm gonna occupy the space, space in the center with d4, c takes d4, c takes d4. Black usually plays either d6 or knight c6 in this position. And Magnus had a recent game against Bortnik in which it was a completely different move order. It was e4, knight f6, e5, knight d5, c4, knight b6, c5, knight d5, and then knight c3. And funnily enough, it had ended up transposing to this exact position if I were to play knight c3. However, I don't want to play knight c3. I want to play bishop c4. And playing knight c3 makes things easy for black. It makes things easy for black because then black can take, and very often black can take once again on e5 and trade many pieces. And as in many other openings, once black trades tons of pieces, it becomes difficult to create chances as white. And obviously we want to create chances with white. We're playing at the very beginning. We have the 1 tempo advantage that the rules of chess granted us, and we don't want to waste it. Okay, knight c6. I'm going to castle short side, obviously completing development. Very soon I'm going to follow it up by queen e2, getting out of this d file. So our rook potentially could come in, but maybe more importantly, so I can now finally play knight c3 without worrying about the trade of queens. I'm going to play queen e2. Black, I'm expecting they're going to castle. And let's see. They're going to castle short side. I'm thinking, well, probably I'm going to play knight c3. I don't see any other alternative. That knight on d5 is pretty strong. And now that I've carried on the appropriate measures, aka queen e2, I can go for it. Now my opponent's having a think, as they should. They have 8 minutes. The only one that is kind of required to take their time more is me, because I berserked. They play knight b6. I'm going to play bishop d3. I'm not sure if I'm completely devastated about that. I think I do want my bishop on d3 ultimately, especially if my opponent's going to castle short side. Now this sniper is pointing at the king side. My opponent castles short side, accepting the challenge. Goodness. Now I'm going to play rook d1. I'm setting up a little trap. Maybe some of you can see it. But if it wasn't because of this bishop, this rook would be attacking the queen. So bishop h7 would be getting rid of the bishop with a tempo, because it's a check. And that would have been pretty good, I think. Now, bishop g5. This is a very tricky move again. It looks like after bishop takes g5, knight takes g5, black can take on e5, and I'm losing a pawn. But I have an unpleasant surprise for my opponent in that sequence. Black has also to finish development in the queen side. I mean, both of us, right? I have this problem on my queen side, and they have this problem in the queen side too. But I think mine is very easy to kind of solve. Knight c3, rook c1, that's it. But then bishop d7, rook a d8, and black is struggling in space due to the structure, actually, which takes me to the next point. This pawn on e5 is one of white's main... Well, actually, structurally speaking, this is the reason why white is better. I mean, look at this. The pawn on e5 is preventing a knight on f6 to defend the king side as normal. It's preventing this bishop from... Because there's a pawn on e6. Preventing this bishop to develop normally. Doing tons of things. Okay, rook d8, interesting. I'm going to play knight c3, developing normally. Introducing the threat of knight b5, sorry. Because this queen doesn't have many squares to go to. It would have to go to b8, and maybe that's not something black wants. So black prevents it with a6. And let's think here. So bishop e7, queen e7. I can't Greek gift, unfortunately. As much as I would want to, I can't Greek gift. Now, queen e4 is also creating a very deadly threat. But after g6, I mean, we have achieved something. We have achieved... We've made it so black had to weaken the king side. But you know what? I prefer h4, because h4 is not only anticipating g6 with h5 ideas, but it's also defending the g5 square. And you might ask, well, why is that important? For example, bishop 67, queen 67, bishop h7, king h7, knight g5 fails to queen 65. So with a pawn on h4, queen 65 wouldn't be possible. If queen 65 isn't possible, after king g8, queen h5, that's game over. Or king g6 and queen e4, and it gets exciting either way. So that's the multifunctional idea of h4. It's a useful move. Black goes knight d5. Okay. Black goes knight d5. So should I go queen e4, g6, h5? Should I go bishop e7, queen e7, bishop h7, and that Greek gift stuff? I don't know, actually. The Greek gift looks very tempting. Yeah, I'm gonna go for the Greek gift, I think. I'm gonna go bishop e7, queen e7 I'm expecting. And I'm gonna sacrifice the bishop on h7, king h7, knight g5, king g6. And then that becomes a question, what should I play here? Queen e4, queen d3, rook d3. It's a mess. But it's a good mess. I mean, it's easier to play with the white pieces for sure. Pawn is thinking. Good sign. Let's try to calculate until the very end. Queen e7, bishop h7, king h7, knight g5, king g6. Queen e4. That forces f5. Both queen d3 and queen e4 force f5, because king h6, queen h7, king h5, queen h7 as well, and king g4, and we don't have to calculate everything in that. Although there is, I think... okay, we don't have to calculate. Like, the king on g4 is always going to get mated in that position. You can trust your instinct. You can calculate the full mate once you get to that point. So it's not practical to calculate that. Let's be time efficient, but okay. Enough of that. Queen e7, bishop h7, king h7, knight g5, king g6, queen e4, f5. And then, you know what? I already noticed a difference. Whether this is important or not is a different story, but there's definitely a difference. And that is that if I play queen d3 rather than queen e4, after f5, I have the additional option of going queen g3. And experience tells me that sometimes that's a big difference. It's the difference between something working, a Greek gift working or not. I don't think it's the case in this one though, because queen d3, f5, queen g3. Like, what am I even threatening? Like, black can simply go king h6, I think. And yeah, having a pawn on h4 didn't help. So we're gonna go for the Greek gift in this version either way. But then now they got knight f5, which I completely... but it's not... Oh, wow. Can't predict anything. I'm gonna go queen h5. I guess they want to prevent this that way, but it looks very bad. Queen f7 is also a threat, obviously. This is pinned. Well, okay, it's not a full pin because it's defended, but then I can take on f7. Okay, knight c3. What am I saying? There's mate stuff probably. So I'm expecting black to defend with knight f5. I think that's the only defense. Because everything else looks pretty... It looks horrible. Knight g6, okay. Maybe that's better? Not sure actually. Now I get queen h7 and h5. I'm gonna play check. h5, undermining this knight, which was preventing my queen to check on h8. Queen e7, knight e4, protecting this guy, renewing the threat. And not only renewing the threat, queen e7 is blocking the king. So the threat would become a checkmating threat, actually. So knight c3, maybe my opponent is thinking. Knight c3. H takes g6 is the most forcing move I can think of. Let's say they go knight d1. Queen h8, king e7. They go queen e5, which I completely missed. I'm missing tons of things today. Okay, let's play knight ce4. Maybe not. I mean, there's also knight f3. There's also knight f3, and maybe that's kind of keeping things... but what I don't like about knight ce4 is that after knight gf4, queen h8, king e7, I'm not taking on g7 anymore because the queen is defending this. So this is bad news. This is bad news, definitely. But okay, no need to panic. Let's go knight f3. In order to kind of... This is a damage control type of move. I go back. And sure, after queen f5 or any move that defends the knight, so queen f6 as well. Maybe queen f6 is slightly inaccurate because of 94 stuff. But queen f5, hg, black could potentially be up a pawn at the end of that sequence. But yeah, I mean, I don't have to trade pieces. I don't have to trade the queen, sorry. Not only pieces, but I don't have to trade the queens. I actually should be better to keep the queens on the board. Now that one allows knight e4. But then there's queen f4. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna take right away. Queen g6, queen h8. King e7, queen h4. Probably I can go queen h4 right away. But I'm gonna force this king to step up. Upwards. And then I'm gonna check. And by doing this, I'm bothering my opponent. But yeah, I'm also gaining tempos. Because I don't want to... Every single tempo is valuable now. Okay, knight e5 is an idea. Knight d5. I'm gonna go knight d5. f6 looks very loose. Like every single time I go rook e1, there's the bishop e6 move is no longer as safe as it used to be. Queen b4, knight e5, rook e1. I don't have time here. I'm gonna go rook e1. If bishop e6, there's queen takes b7. If bishop d7, there's rook e7 or queen e7, winning the bishop. If king g8, g8 is probably the best. Oh, that one. Very clever stuff. I know. Okay, I'm gonna go knight h4. Wow. We won the queen. We could have taken that with check. Kind of this knight h4 move was, practically speaking, actually very... ended up being very clever. But okay, can we actually win this in time? Let's try. Check. 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 Rook d2 and rook h2. There we go. Very exciting game. Thank you for the game. Let's analyze that. So we went c3. The main line is d5 in this position, but knight f6 is very playable as well. It's very interesting. And I say playable, but obviously this is also giving black a good game. We're going bishop c4, knight c6, castle short side. Everything is very standard so far. Just to kind of demonstrate what I was talking about, as soon as we go knight c3, they go knight takes c3, and they take everything, they castle, and all of the chances, all of the king set attacks that we were getting with the queens on the board have vanished. So that's where we go queen e2 to keep the queens on the board. And yeah, knight b6 is a little weird. Like black usually goes b6, bishop e7, and waits until I go knight c3, so they get rid of the knight. As soon as my knight places itself on c3, they go bishop e7, knight a5, and this bishop is actually pretty strong along the diagonal. But yeah, this is asking for problems. Queen e4 was already strong according to the engine. I went rook d1, and yeah, this was wrong, by the way. I mean, knight takes e5 was working. I wasn't calculating anything in this game. Very poor by me. Yeah, knight takes e5 seems to be working, and the whole reason is obviously black is not going to take back. But black has this check, that's the problem. And black is up a pawn. Still equal because white's pieces are so active. They compensate for the pawn. But it's not an advantage. So instead of that, I should have played knight c3 or queen e4, g6, and then something like bishop h6, attacking the rook, or even... Is h4 a move here? It is a move, but not as good as knight c3, just developing. The simple chess. Simple chess, just develop. But yeah, bishop g5, kind of playing for tricks as well. Even bishop takes g5, like even the trick I was playing for didn't work. But I suspect this one is very difficult to refute. At least it looks like. Queen d3, f5 is winning. Okay, so that queen g4 is equal. Black's only move is queen takes and knight takes e5. Queen takes e5 is running into knight f3, winning the queen. Then queen g3, and then there's knight f3, the only move. So yeah, this is why this is equal, but you know, good luck to black finding it. I mean, it's not such a hard move to find. But white is in the easier side of equality. This is what we say when one side has to find all the only moves to like defend, and only then enjoy equality. We say, well, white is in this case in the easier side of equality. But okay, rook d8 happened, and then I finally played knight c3. Now we're back to an enormous advantage. I went h4. It was better to go queen e4, g6, and queen h4, which I thought about. But yeah, once again, I was being very perfect. I mean, I wanted to win with an attack. Like in this case, I'm winning material, and I'm going to win slowly but surely. Yeah, I was being impulsive. I wanted to win the game quickly. Now this is winning, but with knight takes d5, e takes d5, and e6, this is what we missed. David, is h5 not winning? Well, h5 is also very good. Actually, it is very good. Yeah, h5 is also possible. We did well. And knight f3 is the good move. Yeah, we found knight f3, the only dominating advantage, the only move that grants white a dominating advantage. And queen h8, queen h... we went wrong. Queen h2 was better. Yeah. So have you guys heard about the principle? The threat is stronger than the execution. So going queen h4 allows queen f6, and it was a little premature to try to exploit the weak king. So leave that king on e7 as it is. Queen h2, keep it on e7. Keep it kind of nerve-wracking. Like keep black guessing what you're gonna do. because in a way, yeah, black's queen is better on an f6, and you're gonna have to move your queen either way. So why didn't you go queen h2 right away? Okay, well, and after this, yeah, this is completely winning. f6 is a terrible move, although queen b4 is a terrible move by me. I should have played rook e1 and queen h8, obviously. Yeah, I should have seen this. Bishop e6 does not work because of knight d4 among 1,000 other moves. Like, I'm quite sure also queen b4, queen b7 is picking up the rook and winning. But yeah, rook e1 was the way. That was a shame. That would have been a nicer finish. But okay. What do we click here? This. There we go. Hello. Hello, Elage. Hamza. Hello, Hamza. What's my rating? Rapid 2353. And yeah. I'm glad. I think the delayed Alapin is practically putting black in a tough position, as opposed to sometimes it feels like white is the one that has to play accurately when they play the principled lines. Okay, e4, we're gonna play d6. Oh, we forgot to berserk. What am I doing? Okay, it's fine. Where's the tournament? The tournament, if you go to Lichess, you go play arena tournaments, and you join the daily rapid arena. You should be able to find this. Let's go knight f6, hitting the pawn. White usually plays knight c3. We're gonna play e5 here. Usually white continues to develop and occupy the center with d4, but they go bishop c4, which is fine. You can go bishop e7. Bishop c4 is essentially creating the threat of knight g5. If we allow that, good luck defending f7. f7 actually falls. My opponent does it either way. That's funny. No, in this case I can castle, and f7 is very well protected. I was gonna castle anyway. So playing knight g5 only makes my life easier. Because, let me ask you a question. Does the knight belong on g5? Do you think the knight is stronger on g5? Or, let me put it in another way. That knight on g5 is only strong because it has a very concrete purpose in life. And that is supporting f7. If that whole plan of attacking f7 fails, as it will, I'm simply going to play h6 and the knight will have to go back. Because going forward will only make things worse, right? So you have to go back, and then you waste 2 tempos, and you have a worse position, and life is bad. Now, h6, I am noticing that white is potentially going to play h4, which is very exciting. I don't think it's anything to worry about too much for black if we play correctly. But I'm gonna navigate for different ideas here. So let me think of c6. I'm also thinking of knight c6. Like queen f3 is also a very suspicious move. This queen on f3 is only going to be a weakness after knight c6, knight d4 idea. Sorry about this. But yeah, very interesting play by my opponent. Very interesting / dubious. Okay. So. Wow, this is interesting. So I'm going to play knight c6. I'm going to try to get knight d4 in. And even if white steps away, I can still go knight d4 and creating the threat of knight takes c2. So they go d3. I'm going to step in with knight d4, and they have to go queen d1 as far as I'm concerned. So do you see how my opponent spent one tempo with queen f3 and now spends another tempo with queen d1? They wasted time. Now that the queen is on d1, h6, h4 is no longer as strong as before, because the queen is no longer coming to the h file somehow. I mean, queen h3 obviously not, but queen g3, queen h4 ideas. Although that's not entirely true. Like after h6, h4, hg, one of the ideas of this sacrifice is that this is attacked, and as soon as I move my knight, queen h5 comes in. So the queen still has access to h5. But my point is that the queen on f3 is no longer I mean, it was never right. It was never a strength. It only helped me get my knight to a very active square. I'm going to play h6. I think h4 was still worth a shot, but they got knight f3 back. And here I'm going to pin my opponent, bishop g4. You see, as soon as white goes d3, bishop e2 becomes obviously illegal, which means that this pin is even more annoying. So there are two ways white could have gone about this. I mean, I think h4, they should have completely avoided this as a whole. But let's say white had one tempo here, like it was white to play again. They can play h3 to prevent bishop g4. Or they can play bishop e3, as they do now. But I think it's too late for this, because I'm going to double the pawns either way. Or I could also keep the tension. I think both of them are good. Interesting. Bishop e3. So I could go c6 and just kind of play with the bishop here. And I think I'm going to choose that one. I think taking on f3 would grant me a structural advantage, but the g file would compensate for that advantage. On the other hand, gaining the bishop here is a long-term advantage. And I prefer to play with that type of advantage. So I'm going to take on d4. Obviously, white is unable to take. I mean, you are able to take it. It's not illegal. It's possible. But it would be losing the queen, so white has to go back. I think knight 2 was probably better to put more pressure on my pawn. I'm gonna go now pawn to d5. If t takes, I was gonna take with a knight. They go bishop b3. Well, that's just losing a pawn. What is happening here? D takes, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. Aha. That's the idea. But I have bishop c5 in that position. If queen e4, there's rook e8 ideas, potentially. Okay, let's slow down. Let's slow down because there are tons of things here happening. I'm going to take on e4 first things first. This is definitely the right way. And I'm going to take this one. So queen d4, the idea is bishop c5. There are two moves for white to calculate here. Queen d8 and queen e4. Queen d8 is simply running into bishop takes f2 is Vischentzug, intermediate move. Because it's a check, it's a very forcing move. And we're winning a pawn. Then we're going to take on the d8 and we just up a pawn. And queen e4, this is no longer going to happen either way because my opponent didn't take the pawn. So maybe we can talk about that one in the postmortem. I would have played rook e8 and I suspect I'm winning because every time knight e5, queen d1 happens. The queen d3 played by my opponent. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, bishop b4 check. Bishop b4 check is forcing white to lose castling rights. Take a look at this. c3 I'm going to take. And immediately two things happen. I'm introducing the threat of taking on b2, which is a complete disaster for white. So for example, queen e4, I take on b2, it's check. And even if white takes my bishop, I'm taking on a1 and I'm promoting to a queen. It's a complete disaster. That's the first thing. But the second thing that is going on here is that because the queen is on d3, I create tension with the queen. So white had to do something about that. In this case, my opponent took on d8. And here I suspect I have some very nasty tactics. The normal variation in chess is usually if your opponent takes something, you take back. So that's what we call the kind of the standard line, a linear line. But I'm not going to go for that. I'm going to do something known, I already mentioned it. I'm going to do a Zwischenzug, an intermediate move. So I'm not going to do the normal line. I'm going to make it an intermediate move, like in the middle of the line. And then only after that, I'm going to take on d8. So I'm going to take on b2 check first. And after, well, it depends on what white plays. But for example, if they play king f1, only then I'm going to take. And do you see how things change? Like, yeah, you guys get it. Now, blocking with the knight doesn't make white's life any easier because we have a second Zwischenzug in a row. We promote with check. And now we have 1,000 ways of playing. I mean, we have... we can simply take. This is probably the easiest. The reason why I'm not going bishop d2, it looks like we're forcing knight d2 and queen d1 mate. But bishop d2, there's queen d2. So we're not getting mated. Sorry, we're not. How we're not getting mated? We're not getting the mate. Yeah, my opponent castles, and they're gonna resist a little longer because of it, but it's okay. So we're gonna take on d2. If white moves this bishop, I'm gonna take on f1 with the knight. If they take with the knight, I'm gonna take on d1 with the bishop. And this is completely game over. Okay, let's just simplify. Actually, this is the easiest. Rook d1. Bishop f3 would have given them the chance of escaping. Well, I mean, we're being hyper accurate, obviously, here. Goes without saying. We're completely winning with whatever we play, essentially. We're going to play bishop d6, g3, bishop f3, knight e5, queen e5. And there's nothing that white can do to stop rook h1. Thank you for the game, Stephanie Castillo. Let's take a look at this. So they go knight c3, we go e5, and they should have played d4, occupying the center, right? They went bishop c4, we went bishop e7, and they go knight g5. So what my opponent was confusing this with was e5, knight f3, knight c6. So completely different. I played d6, right? What my opponent wanted is bishop c4, knight f6, and knight g5. This is known as the fried liver attack. One of the most popular openings. It's very beginner friendly. The other one being the four knights. Yeah, it's a good opening. But things are completely different. d6, and I play e5, bishop c4. Like, first of all, you're not in time for knight g5. I'm simply castling. But even if you had played bishop c4 in this position, you're simply not in time. There's knight takes e4. So that whole fried liver thing is no longer working. You have to adapt to the new circumstances. You have to go for d4 here. Or you can go for bishop c4 as long as you go for d4 eventually, or castle short there or something like that. But yeah. We went knight d4, and then we went bishop d4, and c6. All of this was pretty correct, so knight d2 would have been better, but then d5 either way. And after this, it was game over. Last things last. Sorry. Well, yeah, if you can say that. Bishop c5, I would have played here. And queen e4, this is the line I wanted to show. Rook e8, if knight e5, the only way to not lose the queen, actually loses something more important, and that is the game. Queen d1. So, yeah, and queen d8, I would have played bishop 6 f2. Although the engine says rook 8 takes d8, but okay, both of these are completely winning. Okay, good game. Let's go back. I stopped playing against viewers after they started cheating against me. I feel like I say that very spitefully. You know, I would gladly play against my like people, but these days everyone is shameless online. It's a real shame. Okay, let's go back to the chess. Salvador Daki, good luck. We're gonna play e4. We're berserked. We're playing with half of the amount of time that we started with. And look at this, they played d6 themselves. Usually we're the ones with the black pieces in this position. I'm going to flip the board very quickly, but I'm going to flip it back. Interesting. So we're going to play knight f3. I mean, there are many ways we can play this. I'm going to play knight f3. They play knight f6, okay. I'm going to play knight c3. I'm keeping the movement of this pawn tense. I'm keeping it flexible. Maybe flexible is the best way of saying it. Why? Because I don't actually want to put it on d4. That is good. But it's very interesting to put it on d3. And I'll tell you why. If we put it on d4, black is eventually going to play either c5 or e5. And that pawn becomes a responsibility. And as I said, you know, you can play d4 and it's a very good move. But that's the explanation behind putting the pawn on d3. It looks very much more passive compared to the pawn on d4. But when you remove that possibility for black to create tension, many chess players start panicking. They don't know what to do anymore. So this is a very positional approach. In short words, I play d3 for the sake of throwing off the opponent a little bit, taking my opponent to less known grounds. My opponent played very quickly king h8. Interesting. I don't think this is the way though. King h8 is useful to prepare f5. Like, you know, looks a little weird in this move order. I'm going to play bishop e3. Part of the reason why I played h3 myself is to prevent bishop g4, knight g4 ideas. So now with bishop e3, I'm no longer worried about knight g4. And they play c5. Okay. I'm going to play queen d2. Notice how I haven't castled anyway. I haven't castled any side, I should say. Because I'm keeping my opponent kind of thinking about that. You know, let's say my opponent thinks I'm going to castle queenside and throw pawns this way, which I probably will do. Then my opponent's going to maybe spend a tempo trying to prevent g4 and things like that. So if my opponent spends tempo and does a plan over here to stop me from throwing pawns, then at the last minute I can go, oh, I castle short side, and look, all of that was a waste. Obviously, it's much more complicated than that, but that's the concept of flexibility in a nutshell. Now, actually, I don't even have to castle. The center is pretty stable thanks to me going d3 rather than d4. So I'm going to start throwing pawns right away. I'm going to go g4. I'm going to go g4. The idea is going h4, h5 eventually. Now, h4, knight takes g4 is something to worry about. So we can't do that just yet. So I'm gonna go... interesting. Interesting. h4, knight takes g4, h5. That's... Okay, you know what? I think I will castle queenside, which is a little risky. I'm gonna castle queenside. Let's do it. It's very risky. The king on c1 is definitely not safer than... I mean, I wouldn't say it's safer on e1 than on e1. Like now my opponent can go b4, and also important to note is that whenever you don't castle, like with a rook on a1, b4, queen a5 doesn't, like it's no longer working that efficiently because that rook is always going to be somewhat protecting the a file. So not amazing, but very interesting regardless, because the good side, those are the bad things, right? But the good thing is that now my rooks are nicely placed in the G and the H file. So I get H4, H5. That was my way, my solution to the fact that black was taking on G4. Now, many things have happened in the meantime. Black has gone A5, B4. The same thing I'm doing in the king side, my opponent is doing in the queen side. Yeah, this is very sharp. I think this is what black should have played. I think black is playing very well. They go queen b6. Now, this is, I think, a mistake. Look, they could have opened up the lines against my king, but now I can close everything off. I'm going to close the door. And sure, they can still sacrifice with b3 and moves like that, but it's not as easy as it would have been just to simply open things up right away. I suspect my opponent was worried about knight takes a3, but still opening things up is better. So yeah, I close things off, and I don't intend to close things off in the... Like, I'm not playing h5 to play h6, by the way. Well, okay, h5, h6 in this situation where black can't save the bishop, then yeah, sure. 95 I don't think is the best I can take now, and the structure becomes very good. This bishop becomes very bad. But going back to my point, h5, I'm playing to mainly open the h file, not to go h6. So I'm going to play h5. That was the plan. Thank you, Max, for subscribing. Yeah, completely. And many of the cheaters are actually not non-chess players, so they don't understand how annoying it is. For them, I mean, yeah, for them it's just a little game. And that's fair. I mean, it's not like, guys, you should appreciate chess. Like, everyone does whatever they want, but they have to. Cheating is always horrible. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I'm stating the obvious here. Stating the obvious. Now, my opponent's having a think here because it becomes very difficult to attack. Impossible, I would say, Like, how on earth do you open things up? All of these heavy pieces in the B file are left powerless. They were at some point very scary, but now everything is fine. Everything is closed. It just looks nice. It doesn't do anything. Now, do you guys remember how I said I wasn't going to go h6? Because I expected my opponent to see that h6 was actually trapping the bishop. So, for example, king g8 maybe, or... If black had played king g8 here, I wouldn't have gone h6 because there's bishop g8, h8, sorry. But h6 wins the bishop, and more importantly, it also opens the h-file at the very end, because there's nothing that black can do to stop h6, g7 opening the h-file other than taking the pawn itself, which also opens the h-file. So in short words, this is doing ultimately what we wanted, which is opening the h-file. Now, knight 64 is very desperate, because you're already losing a minor piece. Now black loses another one. They go bishop 64, and now it's time to go for the kill, as they say. So where's the mate here? I think I have bishop g7 here. I have so much material. But this is bad. What am I doing? It's nothing serious, but okay, my opponent should have taken 1000%. Now I get bishop f6, and there's nothing that black can do to stop queen h6. King takes g7, queen h6, king f6, queen h4, king g7, g5 was my idea. Threatening queen h7 mate. But black has g5. And I thought I had queen h6, but then king e7. I'm still winning there, but it's more tedious. But yet, not taking the bishop is a gift from the sky. g5, queen g7. Thank you for the game, Salvador Daki. Let's take a look at this. So knight c3, g6, bishop c4. So this is known as the modern defense, by the way. I should have mentioned this earlier. Knight f6, knight c3, g6. Black is not occupying the center. Take a look at this. All of black's pieces have only moved one square in their territory. So black, obviously, black and white. They have all of their pieces in the first two ranks. So black is going very slowly outside. And what does that mean? Well, black is keeping an eye on all of the weak squares. They're making sure that it's not easy to break into their position. It's not a fortress, but it's playing very solid chess. And the way I like explaining this is in martial arts. For those of you who watch martial arts, have you guys ever seen those fighters that go on the floor and then kind of say, look, come here, and move like a cockroach on the floor? Although this may be controversial, I don't want to insult anyone, but they do look like a turtle, because they're saying, come here, and then I'm going to tackle you as soon as you attack me. Well, that's the equivalent. So that's a very legit strategy, but going on the floor and kind of waiting for your opponent to attack so you can strike back. And very often the first one that attacks is doing some risks. It is with responsibility. So that's one way of looking at this, and another way of kind of looking at why I played d3 rather than d4. But yeah, there are many lines in which, like, for example, like white goes f4 and then c4, and then like this is good, but as long as you continue with it properly, because you can easily end up in a situation like this where, I don't know, you take here, and then all of a sudden the d4 square is very weak, and even if you double down, like, then all of a sudden you're left with tons of holes. Maybe this is not the best example because there's g4. Oh no, there's no g4. Bishop takes g4. Yeah, this is a good example. Yeah, that's another kind of another strategy. Although I think that's a little bit more kind of a first step to understand chess, because one of the very first things that you think of when you're playing chess is, how on earth do I win? Not many people think, okay, what does my opponent want to do? So when you allow your opponent to blunder, when you are allowing your opponent to kind of make things complicated for themselves, and you're just waiting. That's also clever. Now, as kind of known, we shouldn't have played g4, but I think this is interesting. I mean, it's not objectively horrible. Okay, it is a little bit objectively horrible. Here, b4 would have been very strong right away. Black wasted a little bit of time by playing a5 and preparing this like endlessly. It seems like Black spent 2 more tempos than the computer thought. b4 right away, like knight b1, and then only then rook b8. Now that you know that you're gonna open things up. But yeah, I was completely lost here against knight takes c4. Wow. What is the idea? Queen f6. Look at this move. What a nice tactic. So Black is threatening queen takes b2 and queen f3, and there's nothing I can do to stop both of them. So I'm gonna lose either the knight or potentially the game after queen takes b2, queen a2. I'm actually losing a minor piece. But yeah, after a4, I'm the happiest because yeah, it's not opening up anymore. Okay, well, relatively interesting game. Aponte is berserk. Actually, let me make sure. Okay, we don't. Okay. So we're gonna play d6. We're gonna play knight f6 as we have. We got this position in game 2 or game 3. They play knight c3. We play e5. Bishop c4 again. Bishop e7. And I'm expecting my opponent to go for d4 in this game. They go a3. Interesting. So a3 is designed to move the bishop back. So why is this important? It wasn't important just yet, but for example, if d3, knight c6, then it would have been important to play a3, because if if white plays something like bishop d2, just for the sake of the argument, knight a5 is winning the bishop here. So a3 is designed to do that, but it's a very passive move. Kind of don't like it, actually. So, what do we do? Well, I'm gonna play knight takes c4. David, what are you doing? Well, knight takes c4 would have run into d5, so I'm actually not losing the minor piece. I'm not losing the knight. And I think white should have gone for this, because going for bishop takes f7 just makes things worse. This is equal material, so after all of those tactics, once the dust settles, I'm actually left with an open f file. And I have more pawns in the center than my opponent. So I could have... Bishop g4 was one way of playing, but I could have also played d5 followed by e4. And actually on that note, d4 is actually not... d3 probably should have been played. Although things are already pretty bad for white, because bishop takes f3 is damaging the structure. And yeah, like everything is kind of falling apart. But to make things worse, to add insult to injury, now I get d5. And why is this so powerful? Because after knight g3 there's e4, and I'm winning in the whole piece. At the very least, I think. Or I'm winning. There's tons of pressure against f3. Now, I think there may be knight eg5. There may be knight eg5 saving the day. Or surviving a little bit longer, I should say. Knight eg5, I go e4. There's knight f7, king f7, knight e5 check. So white gets to move the knight with check, which is very important. So we're not going to allow that. Knight eg5, we probably have to take. And after bishop takes g5, what do we play here? So we can take on f3. Obviously, if they take back, we take on g5 and we won a whole piece. So they have to take on d8, and then we take on d1. Let's say rook a takes d1. And as much as I want to win that bishop, unfortunately I can't, because my rook is on f7. If it was on f8, it would be completely winning, because I'm winning the bishop back. Ah. Clever. My opponent is clever. Well, fair enough. Fair enough, fair enough. Credit where it's due. I'm gonna play queen d6 though. I think I might be winning material either way. Look at this. I play queen d6. It looks like d65 things are going bad for me. But I have queen g6. What is this doing? I'm threatening bishop takes f3, g takes f3, queen takes g5 again. So I'm attacking the bishop. And if the bishop moves anywhere, I'm taking on f3 and this is pinned. So I'm winning the knight. So I'm looking forward to... I mean, I wonder what my opponent's going to play. e6. Yeah, wow, I was thinking about that. Good move, e6. Yeah, e6. Once again, my opponent's playing well this. Now, rook f3 is the most forcing move. We have to calculate this first. G takes f3. I guess we can go bishop e6 and go h6 and we would be... that would be 2 pieces for the rook. I think that's a very safe way of playing. There's also rook f5. Rook f5 is probably winning more. Let's go rook f5. If e7, I think I can simply take, by the way. Sorry. Yeah. But I can also go knight c6. So rook f5 we play. I wonder if this is... Actually, no. There was queen d2 here. With the idea of takes, and obviously queen takes g5, queen takes g5. But that would have run into simply h6, and I'm winning the bishop either way. But with rook f5, I don't even have to play h6 anymore. Queen d2, I take, and I'm taking on g5 either way. Hello. That sounds very interesting. Oh my goodness, 95. Ah, no, it doesn't work. I have rook e5 and then rook g5. Very close to working 95. I should have seen it, at the very least. It's a little rough, but I'm curious what a master chess player gets it right. Okay. I'm down. So I'm going to take on g5. We want a whole minor piece. And additionally, we have some pressure against g2, forcing queen f3 or queen h3. Or I thought it was forcing, but my opponent is actually offering that. You know what? I'm not going to take it. I'm going to choose to get things out, get developed first. Because if I take king h1, if I go out now, there's rook g1, and maybe it becomes a little bit more difficult to convert the advantage. So I'm going to bring everyone into the game. Rather than playing materialistically, I'm going to bring all my pieces into the game, and only after my pieces are playing, only then I'm allowed to take material. Now, e7 is something to worry about. I have a couple of ways to anticipate this. Which one do I like? Oh yeah, this is getting scary. I'm gonna play h5. I said I had a couple of ways of anticipating this, but actually, it's not that easy. I'm gonna have to play passively. Oh well, okay. e7, I was gonna play rook e8, but queen b7 allows me, I suspect, to take on f2, and that looks amazing. I'll play even rook f4, I think. Isn't rook f4 completely winning? What does whites do to stop rook h2 and rook h4? Rook h4 is a threat. And if rook e3, then rook takes f2 is stronger. I'll check it out. KitKat. Okay. Thanks for subscribing. The official KitKat chocolate. Queen c8, Queen a8 are the only checks, like after King h7. White is left with all the problems that this position is struggling with. And e7 is a good line to illustrate why or what we were threatening with rook f4. And the threat was king takes h2, rook h4. Ladder mate. Another way of another attempt was rook e3, but then rook takes f2. And we're not going to take on f2, we have rook g1 check due to no one defending the first rank anymore. And obviously there's also rook takes h2, so it's difficult to stop both of these threats. So instead of that, I think white should have tried e7, and then we were forced to go rook e8. And it becomes a little bit more difficult to convert this, but it's still winning. It's just a little bit more tedious. Let's take a look at the other part of the game. So a3 is definitely not the way. Why are people not playing d4? d4 is active, occupying the center. But this allows knight takes e4, and this is something that is convenient for black because we had a pawn on d6 that we exchanged for the more active e4. So our pawn on d6, okay, is doing a good job at defending, but not as active as the one on d4 on e4. The pawn on e4 is very reactive. So tactically, we're getting rid of it. And it's not as if black is amazingly winning here, but black is slightly better already. Now bishop f7 just make things much worse for white because of the f file. Now I think d5 right away should have been the best way, and only then after knight g3 then bishop g4. Now let's say d3 to stop e4. Maybe we can keep the tension. We can take on f3 already, but let's keep the tension for the sake of good practice, and only after h3 then take. So did you notice how keeping the tension is useful? Like if we take right away and then go knight c6, white can spend a move playing something more important like c3. But if we go knight c6, then what is more useful, h3 or c3? c3. So in this case, we kind of forced a suboptimal move h3. But okay. Now, we came to the very end of the stream, so thanks everyone for joining. I'm just going to check out chessfish.io, but I'll do it carefully just in case. Not because I think anything of anyone, but I have been around in the world and bad things happen sometimes to good people. Let's see. Let's take a look at this. Ah, that looks cool. Okay, it's safe. Let me just include this here. And I guess change the layout because it looks a little funny here. Why am I good at the endgame but bad in dynamic positions? Maybe because you don't do puzzles every day and calculate. Maybe you haven't worked in your blindfold visualization. Okay, so how does this work? Ah, I see. Interesting. Ah, I see. These are all the names of the openings. So bird opening, Barnes opening, Sugartor opening. I didn't know this was the Katas opening. Clemens opening. Anderson. Names are Lars and Polish. Yeah, but the problem with this is many things transpose into each other. So, like for example, let's say you start. How do we do this actually? Let's see. I don't need. Oh, that's it for white. Okay. Like let's say we go knight f3, king knight's opening. Yeah. Alapin opening. Well. And let's say we go 3 knights opening, Scotch, okay. And when it doesn't know, it's just a 600. Wow, okay. Interesting. Ah, it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it would take me a while to get used to this as opposed to the usual database. You can control opponent at the top right. Ah, I see. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let's say we played, because d6 is probably your biggest enemy in such a thing, because d6 can convert itself in so many things. So I guess you're sorting that out by rat. You're sorting that out by kind of. So for example, let's say it's d6 and then e5. So I thought this was the Philidor. Let's say we play knight f6, knight c3, and then e5. So this is not the Philidor. Interesting. This should be the Philidor. Maybe after a couple more moves. Bishop c4, bishop b7. Actually, can I flip the board with F? Or is it another hotkey? -1. So what are the... -1, does it mean... What does it mean? But it's definitely very cool. I mean, I can tell there's tons of work here. Okay. I can tell there's tons of work here. So... Wow. It looks very well. I mean, I can't imagine how tedious it was to do the design of all of this. So slight black advantage, I see. Wow, interesting. Interesting. I haven't seen this. I'll play around with it a little longer off stream. Almost a year. Your brother helping. Yeah, it looks it also looks pretty clean. So let's see over here. Ah, interesting. You can force a bot move. All variations. No, well, thanks for the initiative. I mean, yeah, I can definitely see this being I can definitely see this, especially the number. It makes it easier to look at, like, the amount of times that I've been on chess base. I mean, I have strong opinions about chess base, but overall, obviously, it's the only way you can do it as a chess player. Chess base is still the best way. The software. Just nothing has come that I've said, wow, this is winning. But I have lots of complaints with chess base in regards of I mean, how old it is with some things that it does. So, for example, the fact that we can see how many which move is more popular as quickly as that, I think it would save time. So that's probably my favorite thing about this. Like, for example, if we go into the main line of the Najdorf, and knowing that you know, bishop g5 has been played more than bishop e3. Is there any way actually to get rid of the name of the opening and just do purely numbers? That would be... Wow. There is a way. Top right. Wow, you guys thought about this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I like it. I like that. I like that. That's probably the strongest. I mean, I haven't seen this fully. I've probably only scratched the surface of the potential of this, but 935 moves with this. And yeah, obviously, because there's so many, like, yeah, so many moves that are novelties, then you just kind of say how bad it is. Is this minus 35? Like, how much computer power is this? Like, that's insane. You must have gone... I don't know how it works. But yeah. Wow. Very interesting. 935 people play knight d5 here. Very interesting. I'll check it out. I'll check it out a little longer off stream. But yeah. I'm going to close this. There we go. Thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully that was instructive. We even got to experiment with a website. I think it's definitely worth checking out because visualizing the amount of... I mean, you can do it with the database, but as I said, I think it does save time. It would be clever to have that, you know, as a hotkey in your keyboard and switch it on and off. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Max. And I'll see you around. I'll probably see you tomorrow for more Temple Cedar chess. Have a good day.